another creamy white to review. You asked for it, so here's today's paint color, Sherwin-Williams Dover White SW6385. A lot of you are requesting these types of colors, and I do understand why, because warm whites really are timeless, and Dover White is no exception. I would say it definitely fits into the creamy white category because it does have a very noticeable warmth to it, even more so than Creamy by Sherwin-Williams. We talked about it recently. In case you missed it, I'll leave it down below. In this video, we're going to break down Dover White, and at the same time, we'll also look at some color pairings that I selected to go with it inside your home. So if you're excited about creamy white, then do me a solid and hit that like button. You're the best. So even though the color's called Dover White, it could be argued that it's closer to off-white because of the amount of color that it actually contains, all the little colorant that goes in it at the paint store. White is very subjective. It really depends on who you're asking. And it also depends on your surrounding elements. When you're using it, it could totally impact how the color looks in your home. But we can be a little more objective when we examine the color's light reflectance value on the Sherwin-Williams website. You click on the details tab and we can see that it scores an 83. The important thing to understand with light reflectance value is as a paint color approaches 100, it gets lighter and lighter and lighter, and therefore closer to white. And even though 83 isn't that close to 100, there aren't many paint colors that are, as the highest LRV I've seen in Sherwin-Williams is 93. So what does this all mean, James? Just get to the point. Dover White may appear something resembling white on its own, especially on larger surface areas and in larger quantities, but if you put it next to something that is more of a traditional or stark white, you'll really see that yellow undertone coming through. If we look at Sherwin-Williams Creamy, which I already mentioned, you'll notice that it also has a similar warmth, but the big difference with Dover White is it's just a tad lighter and has a little more apparent yellow creaminess rather than beige creaminess. And that's an important distinction to make because yellow as an undertone will feel a little more vibrant, and something that is more beige leaning could really enhance that creamy aspect that you may be trying to achieve. So let's get into some color pairings that I've picked for it. The first one is a slightly darker color that is definitely warm, but in a very different way. Modest White has an LRV of 74, and that gives you nearly a 10-point difference between the two. But the main difference is instead of the yellow cream found in Dover White, you'll find a slightly rosy beige, or a very light variation of taupe. It almost looks like a really light chai latte. The two together have that little difference in two separate areas, in depth and in undertones, which allows them to feel pretty unique side by side. But because they're also lighter in general, you're not going to feel a drastic amount of contrast either. It won't be too visually jarring, especially if you're not that sensitive to color. You can use them in the same area in a number of different variations and proportions, or you can have Dover White in a larger abundance for something a little more comforting, and Modest White in the parts of your home that you want to feel a little more grounded. But that's obviously up to interpretation. Because we started with two colors that are fairly similar, the Midtone is definitely on the more saturated side. It's the blue-green Midtone called Aquaverde, and it comes in at a 49 LRV, making it nearly as Midtone as you can get. I mean, quite literally, just 1 point off. It is a lighter alternative to a traditional teal color, and it's meant to very much pop off of Dover White's yellow creaminess. In fact, the yellow warmth will soften the green aspect in Aquaverde ever so slightly, allowing you to see a little more of a robin's egg blue type of color, which I find quite charming. This is probably the accent color in this palette. We haven't even talked about the next color, but just trust me on that. You can get away with using this as a wall color in select areas where you want it to be featured, but I also like sprinkling it in the form of accessories throughout other parts of the home to help tie the whole space together. I love doing that. The dark color pairing is technically part of the neutral palette of colors, but what I love about it is its ability to connect all of the dots we've set in our color palette. It's called Tree Branch, and it's a bit of a taupey brown that is somewhat muted and feels a tad warm for brown this dark. Its LRV is 19, which seems dark compared to the rest of the colors, because it is, but we can definitely get a whole lot darker too. I could see Tree Branch being used as a wall color throughout a room, no problem, especially somewhere with plenty of windows to illuminate the space. I particularly love its interaction with Aquaverde because they really help each other shine. The white color pairing that I enjoy with Dover White is another one that's pretty warm, but just a bit brighter and more clean looking. It's called White Flour, as in the baking ingredient, that I actually need to pick up because we've been on a bit of a baking kick recently and we're running low. Don't judge me!